My girlfriend Sarah, 26F, and I, 28M, had been together for 3.5 incredible years until everything fell apart recently. When I first met Sarah through a mutual friend at a local pub, she was still dealing with her dad walking out on her and her mom about 3 years before. Her dad, Rick, had just packed his bags one day without any explanation or goodbye, leaving Sarah and her mom Jenny to fend for themselves. Sarah was only 20 when Rick left. She was in her second year of college, struggling to balance her studies with a part-time job to help her mom with bills. Rick hadn't left them any money or means of support. Jenny had to pick up extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse to keep them afloat. Sarah had to give up her dream of studying abroad because they couldn't afford it anymore. When I met Sarah, she was working as a junior marketing executive at a local firm. Despite everything she had been through, she was one of the most positive and hardworking people I had ever met. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our love for indie music and hiking. Within 6 months of dating, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. The early days of our relationship weren't easy. Sarah had severe trust issues from her dad's abandonment. She would sometimes get paranoid if I didn't respond to her texts quickly enough or if I had to cancel plans last minute. But I understood where it was coming from. I made sure to always be transparent with her, letting her know my whereabouts and never making promises I couldn't keep. Over time, Sarah started healing. She stopped checking her phone constantly when I was out with friends. She became more confident in our relationship and started making plans for our future. We had even started looking at houses together, planning to move in by the end of this year. Then about 3 months ago, Rick suddenly got back in touch. He started by sending Sarah a friend request on Facebook, followed by a long message about how much he missed her. Sarah was ecstatic. She showed me the message, tears in her eyes, saying maybe her dad had finally changed. I was skeptical but didn't want to rain on her parade. However, things started getting weird when Rick made it clear he had no intention of meeting or getting to know me. Whenever Sarah would mention me in their conversations, he would either change the subject or make some excuse to end the chat. Sarah tried to brush it off, saying he just needed time to adjust. Rick lives in Millbrook, the next town over from us, barely an hour's drive away. Last week, Sarah mentioned she had found some old family photos while cleaning out her mom's attic. There were pictures of Rick holding Sarah as a baby, family vacations, and Sarah's high school graduation, the last event Rick attended before leaving them. Sarah wanted to drop these photos off at Rick's place after our weekend shopping trip. I agreed to go with her, even though I knew Rick wouldn't want to see me. When we got there, Sarah's car suddenly broke down. The engine made a weird noise and just wouldn't start. It was getting late, and we were stranded right outside Rick's house. Sarah called Rick, explaining our situation and asking if he could give us a ride back home. I'll never forget what happened next. Rick told Sarah he would give her a lift but made it very clear he wouldn't take me. Sarah seemed embarrassed but didn't stand up for me. I told Sarah we should just get a taxi together since I wasn't going to hang around being ignored by someone who abandoned his family and was now pretending to care. Sarah got defensive and said I was being too harsh on her dad. She said people deserve second chances and that I should understand how important this was for her. To my shock, Sarah said she was going to take the ride with Rick anyway. I asked her if she was serious about choosing to go with him over me. When she confirmed she was, I got a taxi by myself. The entire ride home, I couldn't believe what had just happened. Later that evening when I saw Sarah at home, I told her I needed to reconsider our relationship. I explained that I couldn't be with someone who would side with a person who walked out on them over someone who has actually been there for them consistently. I reminded her how I had supported her through everything, her promotion at work, her mom's surgery last year, even her brother's addiction issues. I was there when she needed someone to talk to at 3 a.m., when she was stressed about work, when she needed a shoulder to cry on. Where was Rick during all of this? Sarah dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and being unfair by punishing her for wanting to spend time with her dad. She accused me of being jealous of her relationship with Rick. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't about jealousy, it was about respect and loyalty. Jenny called me yesterday after hearing what happened. She was furious with Sarah. She told me something she had kept from Sarah all these years. Rick hadn't just abandoned them, he had been cheating on Jenny with a coworker for months before leaving. He had also drained their joint savings account before disappearing. Jenny had kept this from Sarah to protect her, not wanting to completely destroy her image of her father. I packed some clothes and went to stay with my brother. Sarah keeps calling and texting, saying we need to talk about this. But I don't see what there is to discuss. She made her choice pretty clear when she chose to go with Rick that day. My brother thinks I'm doing the right thing by standing up for myself. But our mutual friends are divided. Some say I'm being too harsh and should give Sarah space to figure things out with her dad. They say it's natural for her to want her father's approval. Others understand my position and agree that Sarah's behavior was disrespectful. Right now I just feel lost. I love Sarah but I don't know if I can get past this betrayal. The Sarah I knew would never have treated me like this. Am I overreacting? How would you handle this situation? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since I moved out of our shared apartment and started staying with my brother. Sarah didn't stop trying to contact me. She called multiple times every day, left long voicemails, and sent numerous texts asking to meet and explain herself. After a week of ignoring her messages, I finally agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near my workplace. When I saw Sarah, she looked different. She seemed excited, but there was something off about her behavior. She started telling me about all the time she had been spending with Rick over the past 2 weeks. They had been meeting almost every day, going out for meals, and catching up on lost time. Then Sarah dropped the first bombshell. Rick had apparently told her his version of why he left. According to him, Jenny was extremely controlling and wouldn't let him live his life. He claimed Jenny would check his phone, monitor his bank accounts, and even track his location. Rick told Sarah he tried reaching out to her multiple times after leaving, but Jenny had blocked him everywhere and threatened to file harassment charges if he persisted. I sat there stunned, knowing how far this was from the truth. I told Sarah about my conversation with Jenny, how Rick had actually left them for his coworker Lisa. He had been seeing Lisa for months before leaving, and had even moved in with her right after abandoning Sarah and Jenny. Their relationship lasted about a year before Lisa left him for someone else. I mentioned how Jenny had proof, old text messages, emails, and even bank statements showing how Rick had emptied their accounts. Sarah's reaction shocked me. She got defensive and accused me of conspiring with Jenny to turn her against Rick. She said I was clearly jealous of her improving relationship with her dad and was making up stories to sabotage it. When I offered to show her the proof Jenny had shared with me, she refused to even look at it. The meeting got progressively worse. Sarah revealed that she had been spending most of her free time at Rick's place. He had convinced her that her current job was beneath her potential and had promised to help her start her own business, something she had always dreamed about. Rick said he had connections in the restaurant industry and could help her open her own cafe. I reminded her how Rick had never followed through on any of his promises before. He hadn't paid a dime towards her college education, forcing Jenny to work double shifts to support Sarah. He had missed every important event in Sarah's life, her college graduation, her first job celebration, even when she won that marketing award last year. But Sarah dismissed all this, saying people change and deserve second chances. Then came the biggest shock. Sarah hesitantly admitted that Rick had introduced her to someone, his business partner's son, Mark. They had been texting for the past week. Rick thought Mark would be more suitable for Sarah than me, given their similar backgrounds in business. Sarah quickly added that nothing had happened between them, they were just getting to know each other as friends. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up and walked out of the coffee shop. Sarah ran after me, crying and promising to stop texting Mark. She said she would tell Rick to back off about her job and her relationship. But I couldn't unhear what she had said or unsee how quickly she had turned against me and Jenny. Later that evening, Jenny called me in tears. Sarah had confronted her about supposedly keeping Rick away all these years. She accused Jenny of manipulating both of us to hate Rick. Sarah had temporarily moved in with Rick and was barely speaking to Jenny anymore. Jenny blamed herself for not telling Sarah the complete truth about Rick's affairs earlier. She had thought she was protecting Sarah by keeping the uglier details of Rick's betrayal from her. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake, as it allowed Rick to create his own narrative. Our mutual friends are split on the situation. Emma, Sarah's best friend since college, thinks Sarah is being naive and falling for Rick's manipulation. She reminded me how Sarah had always wanted her dad's approval and Rick was using that desperation to control her. But others, like Mike and Claire, think I should be more understanding since Sarah never had a father figure in her life. I ended up blocking Sarah on everything except email, which I kept open in case we needed to discuss any shared responsibilities or belongings. I still can't wrap my head around how quickly everything changed. Just 2 weeks ago we were planning to buy a house together, talking about our future. Now she's living with the man who abandoned her, believing his lies over everyone who actually stood by her. My brother suggests I just focus on moving forward. He says Sarah needs to learn this lesson the hard way, that some people don't change and second chances need to be earned, not freely given. I hope he's wrong, for Sarah's sake. But looking at how easily Rick has manipulated her in just 2 weeks, I'm afraid Sarah might have to learn this the hard way. Update 2. Last week, Emma sent me a concerning email. She had been trying to keep an eye on Sarah since our meeting at the coffee shop. According to Emma, Sarah had not only moved in with Rick permanently but had also quit her job at the marketing firm. Rick had convinced her to invest all her savings, around $45,000 that she had been saving for our house, into opening a restaurant with him. Emma was especially worried because she had overheard Rick on the phone discussing taking out additional loans in Sarah's name. The conversation had seemed suspicious, with Rick telling someone how Sarah had excellent credit and could easily qualify for substantial loans. I forwarded Emma's email to Jenny immediately. Jenny tried warning Sarah about the risks of investing all her money with Rick, especially after what happened with their joint accounts years ago. But Sarah wouldn't listen. She accused Jenny of being bitter and trying to ruin her relationship with Rick again. She even blocked Jenny's number. 2 days ago, Jenny showed up at my brother's place where I'm staying. She was distraught. She had discovered something while going through old financial documents. When Rick left them 6 years ago, he hadn't just emptied their joint accounts. He had secretly taken out several loans in Jenny's name using her personal information. Jenny only found out when debt collectors started calling her after Rick disappeared. Jenny had spent years working extra shifts to pay off those loans while raising Sarah alone. She never told Sarah about this because she didn't want to burden her daughter with more pain. Now Jenny was terrified that Rick was planning to do the same thing to Sarah. Jenny had tried reaching out to Sarah's workplace, hoping to talk some sense into her during lunch break. That's when she discovered Sarah had already resigned. Her former colleagues told Jenny that Rick had been showing up at the office regularly over the past few weeks, insisting that Sarah quit because he had better opportunities lined up for her. The restaurant venture that Rick was proposing seemed increasingly suspicious. Emma did some research on the property Rick claimed he was buying for the restaurant. The address turned out to be an empty lot that wasn't even listed for sale. When Emma tried to look up the real estate agent Rick mentioned, no such person existed in the area. I decided to investigate further and contacted Rick's supposed business partner, the father of the guy Sarah had been texting. To my shock, this man had no idea who Rick was. He wasn't anyone's business partner and his son Mark wasn't even in the country. He had been working in Australia for the past 2 years. The guy Sarah had been texting was actually Rick's friend pretending to be someone else. Rick had set up this elaborate scheme to make Sarah question her relationship with me while also gaining control over her finances. When Emma tried sharing these discoveries with Sarah, she got the same treatment as Jenny and me. Sarah accused her of being jealous of her success and blocked her. Emma says Sarah has changed dramatically over the past month. She's cut off contact with most of her old friends and spends all her time either with Rick or his sketchy friends. I'm incredibly worried about Sarah but feel powerless to help. She's an adult making her own choices, even if those choices seem obviously destructive to everyone else. Jenny has consulted a lawyer about preventing Rick from taking out loans in Sarah's name, but legally there isn't much they can do since Sarah is willingly participating in everything. Sometimes I feel guilty, wondering if I should have handled things differently after the car incident. Maybe if I had been more understanding or patient, Sarah wouldn't have fallen so completely under Rick's influence. But then I remember how quickly she turned against me and Jenny, believing Rick's obvious lies without any proof or questioning. Our mutual friends are still divided on the situation. Some suggest I try talking to Sarah one last time before Rick potentially ruins her life. Others think Sarah needs to learn this lesson the hard way. After everything that's happened, I don't think she would listen to me anyway. She's made it very clear who she chooses to believe. I just hope Sarah realizes the truth about Rick before it's too late. Jenny says she'll keep trying to reach out to Sarah, but even she seems to be losing hope. It's painful watching someone you care about heading toward disaster while refusing any help or warnings. Update 3: Last night, I ran into Emma at the Blue Bar, our old regular hangout spot. She filled me in on everything that had happened with Sarah and Rick. Just as everyone had feared, Rick's restaurant business turned out to be an elaborate scam. He had taken Sarah's entire savings of $45,000 and disappeared again, leaving her with a mountain of debt. The property he claimed to be buying never existed. The construction company he said was renovating the space was fake. The suppliers he had supposedly signed contracts with were non-existent. Even the guy Sarah had been texting, the one pretending to be Mark, turned out to be Rick's drinking buddy who was in on the scam. Rick had played Sarah completely. Not only did he take her savings, but he had also convinced her to take out additional loans totaling nearly $100,000 for restaurant equipment and supplies. None of that money was ever used for the business. Rick had transferred everything to offshore accounts before disappearing without a trace. Sarah tried filing a police report but hit a dead end. Since she had willingly given Rick the money and signed for the loans herself, the police said it was a civil matter. They suggested she hire a lawyer, but Sarah could barely afford groceries now, let alone legal fees. She's back living with Jenny, trying to piece her life back together. She had to declare bankruptcy because of the massive debt Rick had helped her accumulate. Her credit is ruined, she lost her apartment, and she's struggling to find a job because many companies in our field do background checks that include credit history. Emma mentioned that Sarah had tried reaching out to me multiple times but couldn't since I had blocked her everywhere except email. She wanted to apologize for not believing me and Jenny, for throwing away our relationship for someone who just wanted to use her. But honestly, I'm glad I didn't get those messages. I'm in a much better place now and don't want to revisit that painful chapter of my life. Jenny called me last week. She was worried about Sarah's mental state after everything that happened. Sarah had fallen into a deep depression, barely eating or leaving her room. Jenny asked if I would consider talking to Sarah, saying Sarah deeply regretted choosing Rick over me and Jenny. I politely declined. The way Sarah had turned on us so quickly, believing Rick's obvious lies without any proof, showed me her true character. I've started dating someone new. Catherine is completely different from Sarah. She's independent, has a great relationship with her family, and most importantly, she trusts my judgment. Looking back, I'm grateful I walked away when I did. If I had stayed, I might have gotten dragged into Rick's mess too. Last month, Sarah sent me an email apologizing for everything. She admitted she had been naive and stupid to trust Rick over the people who truly cared about her. She asked if we could try again, promising things would be different this time. I didn't reply. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. I wish Sarah well and hope she learns from this experience. But I've moved on with my life. My relationship with Catherine is going great, and we're talking about moving in together. My business is doing well, and I'm finally at peace with everything that happened. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from toxic situations, even if it means leaving behind people you once loved. The whole experience taught me that trust, once broken, is very difficult to repair. This will be my final update on this situation. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this. Life is much better now and I plan to keep it that way.